Imagine a scenario where a billionaire offers their entire fortune in a trade for your remaining decades of healthy life. Most people instinctively realize that money can always be earned again, while a single lost second is gone forever. This stark contrast reveals the deep truth that time is ultimately your most scarce and uniquely valuable asset. While common culture focuses heavily on the quantity of dollars, the truly wealthy focus on their long-term time horizons. Today we explore exactly why the duration of your timeline matters infinitely more than your monthly paycheck amount. First, we will examine how ancient humanity slowly learned to value the distant future over the immediate present moment. Second, we analyze the biological barriers that consistently cause our brains to struggle with patience and long-term growth. Next, we carefully reveal the core principles that allow a small amount of capital to multiply into a legacy. Finally, we outline how strategic patience can completely transform your entire approach to building sustainable and lasting value. In our highly accelerated modern era, society constantly pressures us to seek rapid results and overnight success. However, the foundational structure of the global economy is rigidly built upon waiting and the gradual accumulation of value. The stark difference between building lasting generational wealth and remaining stagnant boils down to a fundamental life choice. Failing to truly realize the heavy cost of lost time consistently compromises your future financial security and independence. Real wealth is not merely a number in a database, but rather the ultimate ability to completely control your schedule. By the end of this session, you will understand exactly how to weaponize the timeline of your own life. In the year 1790, the famous inventor Benjamin Franklin left a remarkable financial legacy to two cities. He gifted 1,000 pounds sterling with strict legal instructions that it must remain entirely unspent for 2 centuries. Franklin deeply understood that through the simple act of waiting, a modest sum would eventually multiply into millions. In the year 1929, the world experienced a devastating stock market crash that tested everyone's absolute patience. Investors who maintained a timeline of several decades recovered and grew their wealth significantly compared to those who panicked. In the year 1987, another sudden market crash proved that short-term volatility is ultimately just temporary noise. In the year 2008, a massive global financial crisis once again demonstrated why long-term horizons are vital. Throughout recorded history, the most successful economic dynasties viewed their diverse assets across decades rather than mere weeks. This profound cognitive shift from hunter instincts to an agricultural mindset permanently changed how humans interacted with surplus wealth. Every major economic breakthrough has heavily relied on the powerful human ability to delay gratification for a greater reward. To truly understand this concept, we must clearly define the mathematical time value of money as absolute reality. $100 held today is worth significantly more than $100 received 10 long years from now. Every single dollar you possess is essentially a tiny worker that produces more workers when given enough time. Carefully consider the contrast between a person aggressively saving at age 20 versus someone finally starting at age 40. The younger individual possesses a structural advantage that no amount of extra income can easily or quickly overcome. This mathematical reality leads to the profound realization that your most powerful tool is your available daily calendar. When you mindlessly spend currency today, you are actually spending the tremendous future growth that those dollars could generate. This is exactly why building the first 100,000 is notoriously difficult, as the primary engine requires time. Once the solid foundation of time is established, exponential growth begins to fiercely accelerate at a seemingly magical pace. Despite the clear mathematical evidence, the human brain is evolutionarily wired to strongly prefer small rewards right now. Our ancient ancestors survived by consuming resources immediately, as the wild ancient world was highly uncertain and dangerous. Behavioral psychologists call this phenomenon hyperbolic discounting, where future value rapidly diminishes within our primitive, instinctual minds. We feel the sharp pain of saving today acutely, while the tremendous benefits decades away feel confusingly abstract. This cognitive bias creates a constant internal struggle between our primitive survival instincts and our modern rational goals. Primal fear and unbridled greed consistently trigger severe emotional reactions when we observe short-term fluctuations in value. We stubbornly and frequently mistake the daily noise of the market for a reliable signal, leading to impulsive decisions. Successful legacy builders actively override these biological triggers by forcing themselves to focus on the distant horizon. They astutely recognize that erratic emotion is the ultimate enemy of time, and that blind panic steals the future. The absolute core principle we must master is compounding, which creates a continuous recursive loop of financial expansion. True compounding only happens when the initial earnings on your capital finally begin to generate their own secondary earnings. Let us clearly address a common myth, the widely held belief that you must have a massive income. The statistical reality is that a modest income combined with an early start will almost always outperform high income. Another common misconception is the stubborn belief that you need to perfectly time the market to achieve steady growth. Centuries of historical data decisively prove that consistent time in the market is vastly more important than timing it. The actual sequence of compounding growth is dramatically nonlinear, meaning the vast majority of gains occur at the end. If you nervously interrupt compounding by withdrawing your funds early, you aggressively reset the clock and lose momentum. Imagine a single green lily pad that naturally doubles daily until it completely covers a massive pond on day 30. On day 29, the vast pond is only half covered, meaning massive exponential growth happens entirely in the final day. Unwavering patience is not merely waiting around, but rather maintaining a consistent direction while the math slowly works. In a terribly distracting modern world, intentionally maintaining a long-term perspective is a massive competitive advantage. The successful application of this principle requires intensely looking at every financial decision through the strict lens of 20 years. Instead of casually asking what a consumer item costs today, actively ask what that specific capital becomes if it grows. The unshakable pillars of generational wealth are slowly built upon the shiny items you stubbornly refuse to purchase today. When perfectly aligning your daily actions with your timeline, you successfully stop working for money and let money work. Exercising strategic patience creates a protective fortress around you against the volatility of the world, resulting in profound clarity. By consciously treating your time as your absolute primary asset, you transition from a consumer into a legacy builder. Deeply reflect on your own unique life and carefully consider how many incredibly valuable years of growth you still have. What if you completely changed your mindset to view every single day as a critical building block for your future? The absolute most profoundly important question is never your current earnings, but rather how much time you give your capital. Your future self will ultimately be an ally or a stranger, depending entirely on your active respect for time today. Generational wealth is simply the abundant harvest of time that was carefully planted with discipline and watered with patience. Remember that every single second spent highly intentionally today directly contributes to the ultimate permanent freedom of your tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us as we methodically continue to build the concrete foundations of your financial understanding. We appreciate your time today. This is Wealth Lexicon education only, not financial advice.